You will definitely doubt your decision. You will ask yourself if you did the right thing. And again, this is all part of the process. If you have that bigger vision for yourself, trust the process and know that you will reach your goals soon enough as long as you take the action. I mean, you already took the first step. You already quit your job. You can literally do anything from now on. You're done with the scary part. Now it's time to take action and move forward. Welcome to Spill the Creativity Podcast, the podcast where we will be having conversations with other creatives that will inspire us, keep us encouraged, and push us to reach our own goals. This is the place where we will be acknowledging the hard truths because while this path is fulfilling, the truth is there's no easy way to do things. It all takes hard work. We are going to be talking about the good and the bad about choosing a creative career. If you're looking for a cup of stimulation for creatives, a warm cup of tea in this otherwise bittersweet pursuit, then you're in the right place. So let's get that cup of tea and get on with the conversation. Hi everyone, welcome to Spill the Creativity Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about something that I still get asked quite frequently, and it is about quitting your day job. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say a quick disclaimer that I am not in any way trying to romanticize the quitting your day job thing, especially if you haven't thought this through, and especially if you don't have a short-term plan just yet. Because while I did learn a lot from my own experience, this is something that I do not wish for everybody to go through, and you're going to find out why. So, let's get right into it. In 2020, I quit my job in the middle of a pandemic where there were massive layoffs left and right. Was I stupid to do this? Maybe. Looking back, maybe a little stupid, but stupid is a really strong term, so maybe not. But I knew that I could have prepared for it better and not let my emotions take the lead when I finally handed out my resignation letter. Yes, I let my emotions get the best of me, and more about that later. That being said, though, here are the three things that I wish I knew before I quit my job. And number one is I hope I listened to myself from the very start. Because way back in uni, I already knew that I didn't want to work in a 9 to 5 and wanted to be an entrepreneur instead. I wasn't really sure exactly what kind of entrepreneur I wanted to be, but I was so sure that I did not want to be clocking in and out of an office. But everybody I knew around me was pursuing a day job. At that time, we were already comparing, companies that we were going to apply for and companies that, they're going to end up working in. And well, that's what my parents thought that I wanted to do as well. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should just do this instead. And maybe I could do entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur on the side, and I could balance being a corporate girly and a side hustle queen, and life would be perfect. Obviously, that didn't happen. Well, it kind of did at some point, but I got tired and just stopped doing it. And you know what? This reminds me, back in uni, we had like several graduation ceremonies. There's like one for the entire university and like another ceremony for like your college or for like your department. And I remember during my department's college graduation rites, the professors invited this keynote speaker. And I say this with air quotes because I hate that dude. They invited this person to give a speech. And in his speech, he asked us, the graduating class, what we wanted to be. He was calling out random people. And then he pointed out at me and he was like, what do you want to be after you graduate? And I'm like, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he was like, really? Is that what you really wanted to do? And I'm like, dude, you're doing such a great job at inspiring the graduation class. And honestly, I hate him. And I still remember that moment every now and then, obviously. So, after having my dreams shitted on by this man-child, I just thought, maybe I should just really try to get the 9 to 5 because he says so, everybody says so. Maybe this is really the way to go, right? So I tried. And there were a lot of times where I just honestly don't feel like I fit in. Like, this is just really not for me. But you know what? Don't get me wrong. Working in the 9 to 5, being in corporate really taught me a lot of things. I had so much fun with the events, meeting new people, meeting all these people from different places, from different walks of life, learning all these cool technology and all these things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise if I didn't, join the company. I also met a ton of really nice people that ended up being lifelong friends. So that was one of the best things that I got from my 9 to 5, I would say. But despite all that, I still have this really strong resistance towards it. And at that time, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'm just being an ungrateful bitch. Like maybe I was just a bratty millennial who is not used to not getting what she wants. And now that I have a taste of the quote unquote real world, I just wanted to give up because you know what? It's not as easy as I thought it was. Adulting really is hard. And I don't know, maybe I was just being a special snowflake. I don't know. So I just honestly kept dismissing those thoughts. And I was just thinking, you know what? Your mama did not raise a quitter. So I just continued to fake it till I make it. Spoiler alert, I did not make it. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because apart from the resistance and the strong gut feeling, there were already so many signs that I was meant to do something else. I just shrugged it off because I did not know better. Or I guess it's more of like it wasn't what I was quote unquote supposed to do. And honestly, I really wished I listened to myself sooner because if I did, then I would have had started to explore things while I still had steady cash flow. I would have been able to prepare myself better instead of waiting for me to reach that level of frustration and burnout that just made me give in to my emotions and quit without a plan. So, what I'm trying to get at here is if you have that gut feeling or if you're feeling that kind of resistance towards whatever it is that you're doing, instead of shrugging it off, try to dig deeper. Listen to it, acknowledge it, and try to dig deeper because that would lead you to two things. Number one, it can either make you realize that you're just tired and overwhelmed. Perhaps you just need to take that vacation leave, go to Siargao, go to Boracay, go abroad if you want to, go to these parties, drink with a stranger. And maybe, after taking a breather, you're going to realize that, you know what, I'm just tired. I just honestly needed a break. And now I'm ready to go back to work. Or number two, it could mean that it's time for you to start exploring other options. And there's totally nothing wrong with that. Knowing your options, knowing what the other things that you can do potentially is not a bad thing, especially if you're in your early 20s, late 20s. Actually, you know what? There's no expiration date for exploring whatever it is that you want to explore. Whatever age group you are in, if you have that inkling, if you have that itch to explore something deeper, then go ahead and do it. When you dig deeper, take it as a sign to really listen to it and figure out if maybe it's time for you to do something else because we are not tied to one job. We are not tied to like one identity, quote unquote, for the rest of our lives. So if you feel like you need to explore and do something else, then maybe now is the time to do it. That way, you won't let your emotions get the best of you and kind of regret things after. So, you're doing things responsibly, I would say. Like you still have steady cash flow while you are currently exploring other things. Like you don't necessarily have to drop everything, quit your job and, explore surfing, explore all these other things. You can do it while you're doing your job. And that's honestly one thing I wish I knew, which leads me to number two. Again, I do not regret quitting my job because I believe that that was the right thing to do. And I also believe that because I kept shrugging off the signs, the universe had to put me in a situation where it was like a do or die moment. But still, number two, I wish that I was able to save up a little bit more so that I did not have to be on survival mode for 6 whole months. Those were like the darkest 6 months of my life. That's like the worst 6 months. And I would not wish it for anybody. I would not wish for anybody to experience that because unlike the success stories that most of you must have seen on TikTok, Facebook, or whichever social media platform you're in, where these freelancers, quote unquote, would say that they have earned 6 figures here and have achieved time freedom. I did not get that. in 3 months. I did not land a client in 3 weeks and definitely did not earn six figures after 3 months. Honestly, I wish I did, but that's not just the reality for me. So, since I let my emotions do the decision making for me when I finally quit my job, my bank account was really not prepared. At that time, I think I only had enough money to last me for another month. And I was still running my crochet business back then. And again, this was in the height of the pandemic. So the things that I was selling were considered unessential. And so sales were really, really slow. And it was not enough for me to fund myself. So long story short, I had to go back home and live with my mom so that I won't have to pay for rent. I swallowed all my pride and borrowed some money. I know, cringe. And I feel really weird talking about this publicly because this is something that I wouldn't usually admit. This is something that I wouldn't usually, like talk about in the open. But you know what? We're all about spilling the tea here. So here we go. I always like to have this facade that I have everything under control. And at that time, nothing was under my control. And if you know me, I'm a big planner. I plan out everything in my life. And it was so difficult for me because honestly, I didn't know how to plan things because so many things were in the gray areas. Like nothing was set in stone. I didn't know what I was going to do the next day because there was literally nothing to do. And yeah, I was just in a phase where nothing was under control and it was freaking me out. I lived with my mom after living independently for almost 10 years. You could just imagine how chaotic that was. I had to adjust to a new routine. I have to figure out what to do next. I have to find people who want to pay for my skills. And it was just really not a good place to be in because I had limited funds. All decisions became magnified because every little thing that required money was something that I had to really and carefully think about. You could just imagine how difficult life was back then because I can't just purchase new software that I know would help me with my business because I didn't have money. I can't just sign up for a new program because again, no money. I knew I needed more tools to make my new business much easier to manage. But yes, you guessed that right. Your girl did not have money. I have to make sure that every single peso will go to something meaningful. Otherwise, I will starve. Or maybe not, because I was already living with my mom then. But you know what? It was such a big pain in the ego for a 26-year-old to not have cash flow, while the people around me seemed to be living their dream lives. People were getting promoted. People were launching new businesses. People were doing all these things. And I'm like, why is this happening to me? I'm supposed to be happy. I just quit my job. I followed my heart. I followed my dreams and I'm unhappy. Also, I want to acknowledge that compared to other people, I still am really lucky because I only had myself to think about. I was not the breadwinner. I did not have kids or a family to support. So it was, I would say, a bit easier for me. But still, it was not the best experience. Honestly, it was the worst. But if there was anything good that came out of this scrappy era, it would have to be the laser focus that I had to show up so I can get clients and my ability to be resourceful. As I mentioned earlier, I could not afford to invest in anything for my business. So I had to make do with what I had and stopped making excuses. I listed down all the things that I had: internet, phone, laptop, social media accounts, and made sure that I showed up on my feed 3 times a week and in my stories 5 times a week. Every single day, I made sure that I showed up. I made sure that I'm in front of the people who might want to work with me. I tried out different things and reached out to a lot of people just so I can get hired for literally anything. I remember using the remaining balance of my credit card to sign up for a course, and I swore to God that I was not going to stop until I made this work. I guess I just needed to be in a situation where I literally had no choice because it really made me gritty and mentally strong. Like, I was in that phase where I was literally not taking any shit from anyone because I was alone. I was gonna do this all by myself and I had no time to deal with anybody's shit. And while I did learn all these things during that scrappy phase, I knew that I could have avoided all those scrappy moments if I had enough money and enough elbow room to invest on good programs, tools, coaches that would have fast-tracked my process. So, if you have already decided to finally quit your job, make sure that you have enough savings to save your ass during the period where you're client hunting or searching for new opportunities. Again, this is not to discourage you. I just don't want you to go through what I went through. So if you can set aside money for the transition phase, make sure that you get to, because it will not only keep you from starving, it will also give you enough elbow room to just relax and not be in survival mode all the time. Because you know what? The 6 months, like the transition period from when I quit my job to finally, like kicking it off in the freelancing world, that dark 6 months, I felt like I did not relax at all. I was just always on edge because, I was chasing for people, chasing for opportunities. And honestly, I could not afford to fail. I could not afford to not do what I was doing. So if you could save up a little just so you won't be doing that, so that you won't be on edge all the time, please do so and don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes, please, because this path is definitely not easy. So you're going to need all the resources that you can to make it more manageable. And this leads me to number 3. I wish that I just stopped doubting myself and trusted the process. Now, this lesson, quote unquote, can be applied to both in the pre-resignation phase and post-resignation phase. For the pre-resignation phase, this goes hand in hand with lesson number 1, which is to listen to yourself and trust the process. If you feel it in your bones that the 9 to 5 is not for you, trust your gut and trust the process. If you did a great job in your previous role, believe me, people will beg you to stay. They will offer you many things: higher salary, a promotion, more flexible hours, work from home opportunities, and all these other things. But if you're dead set on quitting, just say thank you and move forward. Apart from that, it's also really difficult to say goodbye to the people you work with, the people you have seen every single day for the past years before everybody started working from home. It's going to be really difficult to part ways with them because they're already part of your lives, especially if you have good relationship with them. It's really going to be part of the process. You would be presented with opportunities. You will be presented with situations where you're going to think twice. You're going to doubt your decision. But again, if you have already decided earlier on that you wanted to quit, your gut feeling tells you so. Every bone in your body is telling you to quit. I want you to just, acknowledge these, say thank you, and move forward. Again, it's part of the process. You have to let go of things to make room for bigger and better opportunities. Now, for the post-resignation phase, it's normal to feel empty, lost, and confused after quitting. And I cannot stress this enough. You're going to have the worst existential crisis of your life, especially if you're like me. When I was in my mid-20s when I quit my job, and that was a time when people were getting engaged, starting families, things were kicking off for their careers, and here I was trying to start things over again. What the actual fuck, right? That was the worst. And you're even going to feel this even more if you have tied your identity to that role. You will definitely doubt your decision. You will ask yourself if you did the right thing. And again, this is all part of the process. If you have that bigger vision for yourself, trust the process and know that you will reach your goals soon enough as long as you take the action. I mean, you already took the first step. You already quit your job. You can literally do anything from now on. You're done with the scary part. Now it's time to take action and move forward. And I know it's easier said than done. So go at your own pace. Take it one day at a time. Take it one bite at a time, one step at a time, whatever, metaphor you want to use here. But what I'm trying to say is go with the pace that feels right for you. Go with the flow, because at some point you will be exposed to other people's wins, other people's achievements as they are going through the same journey as you are. These are people who are also aspiring the same things as you are. And it's very inevitable for you to compare yourself to them. So I'm not encouraging you to feel bad about their accomplishments, but if you feel like you are being left behind, and if you feel like you're being left behind, I want you to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself if their accomplishments are either inspiring you to move forward or if it's triggering you to give yourself self-pity. If it's triggering you to get on this self-pity mode, I suggest that you put them on mute first. Don't look at their posts. Don't look at their content, and put your blinders on. Focus on yourself. Focus on you. Right now, all you have is yourself. So imagine if we all just believed in ourselves sooner and trusted that things will fall in place for us because we have put in the work. Basically, what I'm getting at here is that wherever you may be in your quitting stage, You just have to trust that things will eventually fall in place. And I know that that sounds really scary, especially if you're a planner person like me. Like you really need to write things down and you really have to have like this concrete end goal. But you know what? Sometimes the universe just doesn't give that for us. Sometimes the universe wants us to explore and just trust it. Trust the universe or God, whatever you want to believe in, whoever you want to believe in, just trust it, trust yourself, that things will eventually fall in place for you. One of the things that I told myself when I was going through all this is that I was going to give myself grace to explore and to figure it out for 1 year. For 1 year, I will be my best cheerleader. I will be the hardest working person and see where this goes. And if this ends up being a flop, then oh shit. But maybe that is a sign that I wasn't meant for it. And at least I did my best. At least I gave it a shot. At least I tried. And I mean, as I always say, oh wells are always better than what ifs. If it doesn't work, then that might probably mean that I should apply for another 9 to 5. Again, at least I tried, right? But guess what? Here we are now, 2 years later, thriving, continuously growing, and we finally have a podcast. So yeah, it turns out that things really did fall in place. I mean, things are definitely not perfect right now. There are so many rooms for improvement, but I am so much further than where I was from 2 years ago. I am no longer in survival mode. I don't live with my mom anymore. And I could honestly say that I am financially free, that I have achieved the financial freedom and the time freedom that I've always dreamed of. And that is because I put in the work. So, probably if I knew about these lessons earlier on when I was contemplating on my life decisions, I would probably be so far ahead by now. But I guess I had to go through all that other stuff for me to learn what I needed to learn, right? So yeah, those are the 3 things that I wish I knew before I quit my job. So just to recap, number 1, I wish I listened to myself sooner. Number 2, I wish I prepared for it financially. And number 3, I wish I trusted myself and the process. So if you're going through this phase, I hope that you got something from this. And I'm really happy that I got to share a little bit of my story with you. I hope you found inspiration with this. And I hope that whatever your end decision would be, everything will work out for you. It will definitely not happen overnight. But I know that at some point, if you're always going to put in the work, if you're always going to show up for yourself every single day, the universe will find a way to give you whatever it is that you want. Things will fall in place. I promise. So yeah, again, I hope you got something from this and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye! Thanks again for listening to Spill the Creativity podcast. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate it if you can give me a 5-star rating on Spotify and a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Or you can also take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at Spill the Creativity podcast, and you can also try the special filters if you want. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and make sure to catch fresh drops every Thursday morning. Bye!